Chapter 3, The Lot, Section, or Part 1, or whatever. Part 1, Section 11, 12 o'clock noon. The town whistle went off with a great 12-second blast, ushering in lunch hour at all three schools and welcoming the afternoon. Lawrence Crockett, the Lot's second selectman and proprietor of Crockett's Southern Maine Insurance and Realty, put away the book he had been reading, Satan's Sex Slaves, and set his watch by the whistle. He went to the door and hung the back at 1 o'clock sign from the shade pole. His routine was unvarying. He would walk up to the excellent cafe, have 2 cheeseburgers with the works and a cup of coffee, and watch Pauline's legs while he smoked a William Penn. He rattled the doorknob once to make sure the lock had caught and moved off down Jointner Avenue. He paused on the corner and glanced up at the Marston house. There was a car in the driveway. He could just make it out, twinkling and shining. It caused a thread of disquiet somewhere in his chest. He had sold the Marston house and the long-defunct village washtub in a package deal over a year ago. It had been the strangest deal of his life, and he had made some strange ones in his time. The owner of the car up there was, in all probability, a man named Straker, R.T. Straker, and just this morning he had received something in the mail from the Straker. The fellow in question had driven up to Crockett's office on a shimmering July afternoon just over a year ago. He got out of the car and stood on the sidewalk for a moment before coming inside. A tall man dressed in a sober 3-piece suit in spite of the day's heat. He was as bald as a cue ball and as sweatless as same. His eyebrows were a straight black slash, and the eye sockets shoved away below them to dark holes that might have been carved into the angular surface of his face with drill bits. He carried a slim black briefcase in one hand. Larry was alone in his office and Straker came in. His part-time secretary, a Falmouth girl with the most delectable set of jehoobies he ever clapped an eye to, worked for a Gates Falls lawyer on her afternoons. The bald man sat down in the client's chair, put his briefcase in his lap, and stared at Larry Crockett. It was impossible to read the expression in his eyes, and that bothered Larry. He liked to be able to read a man's wants and his baby blues or browns before the man even opened his mouth. This man had not paused to look at the pictures of local properties that were tacked up on the bulletin board, had not offered to shake hands and introduce himself, had not even said hello. "How can I help you?" Larry asked. "I have been sent to buy a residence and a business establishment in your so fair town," the bald man said. He spoke with a flat, uninflected tonelessness that made Larry think of the recorded announcements you got when you dialed the weather. "Well, hey, wonderful," Larry said. "We have several very nice properties that might—" "There is no need," the bald man said, and held up his hand to stop Larry's words. Larry noted with fascination that his fingers were amazingly long. The middle finger looked 4 or 5 inches from base to tip. "The business establishment is a block beyond the town office building. It fronts on the park." "Yeah, I can deal with you on that. Used to be a laundromat. Went broke a year ago. That'd be a real good location if you—" "The residence," the bald man overrode him, "is the one referred to in town as the Marston house." Larry had been in the business too long to show his thunderstruck feelings on his face. "Is that so?" "Yes. My name is Straker. Richard Throckett Straker. All papers will be in my name." "Very good," Larry said. The man meant business. That much seemed clear enough. "The asking price on the Marston house is $14,000, although I think my clients could be persuaded to take a little less. On the old washteria, that is no accord. I have been authorized to pay $1. "1?" Larry tilted his head forward the way a man will when he has failed to hear something correctly. "Yes, a 10, please." Straker's long fingers undid the clasps on his briefcase, opened it, and took out a number of papers bound in a blue transparent folder. Larry Crockett looked at him, frowning. "Read, please. That will save time." Larry thumbed back the folder's plastic cover and glanced down at the first sheet with the air of a man humoring a fool. His eyes moved from left to right randomly for a moment, then riveted on something. Straker smiled thinly. He reached inside his suit coat, produced a flat gold cigarette case, and selected a cigarette. He tamped it and then lit it with a wooden match. The harsh aroma of a Turkish blend filled the office and was eddied around by the fan. There had been silence in the office for the next 10 minutes, broken only by the hum of the fan and the muted passage of traffic on the street outside. Straker smoked his cigarette down to a shred, crushed the glowing ash between his fingers, and lit another. Larry looked up, his face pale and shaken. "This is a joke. Who put you up to it, John Kelly?" "I know no John Kelly. I don't joke. These papers, quitclaim deed, land title search. My gosh, man, don't you know that piece of land is worth $1.5 million? You pike," Straker said coldly. "It is worth $4 million, soon to be worth more when the shopping center is built." "What do you want?" Larry asked. His voice was hoarse. "I have told you what I want. My partner and I plan to open a business in this town. We plan to live in the Marston house." "What sort of business? Murder Incorporated?" Straker smiled coldly. "A perfectly ordinary furniture business, I am afraid, with a line of rather special antiques for collectors. My partner is something of an expert in that field." "Shit," Larry said crudely. "The Marston house you could have for $8.5 grand, the shop for 16. Your partner must know that. And you both must know that this town can't support a fancy furniture and antique place." "My partner is extremely knowledgeable on any subject in which he becomes interested," Straker said. "He knows that your town is on a highway which serves tourists and summer residents. These are the people with whom we expect to do the bulk of our business. However, that is no accord to you. Do you find the papers in order?" Larry tapped his desk with the blue folder. "They seem to be, but I'm not going to be horse-traded no matter what you say you want." "No, of course not." Straker's voice was edged with well-bred contempt. "You have a lawyer in Boston, I believe, one Francis Walsh." "How do you know that?" Larry barked. "It doesn't matter. Take the papers to him. He will confirm their validity. The land where the shopping center is to be built will be yours on fulfillment of 3 conditions." "Ah," Larry said and looked relieved. "Conditions?" He leaned back and selected a William pen from the ceramic cigar box on his desk. He scratched a match on shoe leather and puffed. "Now we're getting down to the bone. Fire away." "Number 1. You will sell me the Marston house and the business establishment for $1. Your client in the matter of the house is a land corporation in Bangor. The business establishment now belongs to a Portland bank. I am sure both parties will be agreeable if you make up the difference to the lowest acceptable prices, minus your commission, of course." "Where do you get your information?" "That is not for you to know, Mr. Crockett. Condition 2. You will say nothing of our transaction here today. Nothing. If the question ever comes up, all you know is what I have told you. We are 2 partners beginning a business aimed at tourists and summer people. This is very important." "I don't blab." "Nonetheless, I want to impress on you the seriousness of the condition. A time may come, Mr. Crockett, when you will want to tell someone of the wonderful deal you made on this day. If you do so, I will find out. I will ruin you. Do you understand?" "You sound like one of those cheap spy movies," Larry said. He sounded unruffled, but underneath he felt a nasty tremor of fear. The words, "I will ruin you," had come out as flatly as, "How are you today?" Gave the statement an unpleasant ring of truth. And how in hell did the Joker know about Frank Walsh? Not even his wife knew about Frank Walsh. "Do you understand me, Mr. Crockett?" "Yes," Larry said. "I'm used to playing them close to the vest." Straker offered his thin smile again. "Of course, that is why I'm doing business with you." "The 3rd condition. The house will need certain renovations." "That's one way of putting it," Larry said dryly. My partner plans to carry this task out himself, but you will be his agent. From time to time there will be requests. From time to time I will require the services of whatever laborers you employ to bring certain things either to the house or to the shop. You will not speak of such services, do you understand? Yeah, I understand. But you don't come from these parts, do you? Does that have bearing? Straker raised his eyebrows. Sure it does. This isn't Boston or New York. It's not going to be just a matter of me keeping my lip buttoned. People are going to talk. Why, there's an old biddy over on Railroad Street named Mabel Words who spends all day with a pair of binoculars. I don't care about the townspeople. My partner doesn't care about the townspeople. The townspeople always talk. They are no different from the magpies on the telephone wires. Soon they will accept us. Larry shrugged. It's your party. As you say, Straker agreed. You will pay for all services and keep all invoices and bills. You will be reimbursed. Do you agree? Larry was, as he had told Straker, used to playing him close to the vest, and he had a reputation as one of the best poker players in Cumberland County. And although he had maintained his outward calm through all this, he was on fire inside. The deal this crazy man was offering him was the kind of thing that came along once, if ever. Perhaps the guy's boss is one of those nutty billionaire recluses who, Mr. Crockett, I am waiting. There are 2 conditions of my own, Larry said. Straker looked politely interested. He rattled the blue folder. First, these papers have to check out. Of course. Second, if you're doing anything illegal up there, I don't want to know about it. By that, I mean, but he was interrupted. Straker threw his head back and gave vent to a singularly cold and emotionless laugh. Did I say something funny? Larry asked without a trace of a smile. Of course not, Mr. Crockett. You must pardon my outburst. I found your comment amusing for reasons of my own. What were you about to add? These renovations, I'm not going to get you anything that will leave my ass out to the wind. If you're fixing up to make moonshine or LSD or explosives for some hippie radical outfit, that's your own lookout. Agreed, Straker said. The smile was gone from his face. Have we a deal? And with an odd feeling of reluctance, Larry had said, if these papers check out, I guess we do it that. Although it seems like you did all the dealing and I did all the money making. This is Monday, Straker said. Shall I stop by Thursday afternoon? Better make it Friday. So, it is very well, he stood. Good day, Mr. Crockett. The papers had checked out. Larry's Boston lawyer said the land where the Portland Shopping Center was to be built had been purchased by an outfit called Continental Land and Realty, which was a dummy company with office space in the Chemical Bank building in New York. There was nothing in Continental's offices but a few empty filing cabinets and a lot of dust. Straker had come back that Friday, and Larry signed the necessary title papers. He did so with a strong taste of doubt in the back of his mouth. He had overthrown his own personal maxim for the first time. You don't shit where you eat. And although the inducement had been high, he realized as Straker put the ownership papers to the Marston house, an erstwhile village washtub, into his briefcase, that he had put himself at this man's beck and call. And the same went for his partner, the absent Mr. Barlow. As last August had passed, and as summer had slipped into fall, and then fall into winter, he began to feel an indefinable sense of relief. By the spring, he had almost managed to forget the deal he had made to get the papers, which now resided in his Portland safe deposit box. Then things began to happen. That writer Mears had come in a week and a half ago asking if the Marston house was available for rental, and he had given Larry a peculiar look when he told him it was sold. Yesterday there had been a long tube in his post office box and a letter from Straker, a note, really. It had been brief. Kindly have the poster which you will be receiving mounted in the window of the shop, R.T. Straker. The poster itself was common enough and more subdued than some. It only said, opening in 1 week, Barlow and Straker, fine furnishings, selected antiques, browsers welcome. He had gotten royal snow to put it right up. And now there was a car up there at the Marston house. He was still looking at it when someone said at his elbow, "Fallen asleep, Larry?" He jumped and looked around at Parkins Gillespie, who was standing on the corner next to him and lighting a Pall Mall. "No," he said and laughed nervously, "just thinking." Parkins glanced up at the Marston house, where the sun twinkled on chrome and metal in the driveway, then down at the old laundry with its new sign in the window. "And you're not the only one, I guess. Always good to get new folks in town. You've met 'em, ain't you?" "One of them, last year." "Mr. Barlow or Mr. Straker?" "Straker." "Seemed like a nice enough sort, did he?" "Hard to tell," Larry said, and found he wanted to lick his lips. He didn't. "We only talked business. He seemed okay." "Good, that's good. Come on, I'll walk up to the Excellent with you." When they crossed the street, Lawrence Crocker was thinking about deals with the devil. 12, 1 o'clock p.m. Susan Norton stepped into Babs's beauty boutique, smiled at Babs Griffin, Hal and Jack's eldest sister, and said, "Thank goodness you could take me on such short notice." "No problem in the middle of the week," Babs said, turning on the fan. "My, ain't it close? It'll thunderstorm this afternoon." Susan looked at the sky, which was an unblemished blue. "D'you think so?" "Yeah. How do you want it, hon?" "Natural," Susan said, thinking of Ben Mears. "Like I hadn't even been near this place." "Hon," Babs said, closing in on her with a sigh, "that's what they all say." The sigh wafted the odor of juicy fruit gum, and Babs asked Susan if she had seen that some folks were opening up a new furniture store in the old village washtub. Expensive stuff by the look of it, but wouldn't it be nice if they had a nice little hurricane lamp to match the one she had in her apartment, and getting away from home and living in town was the smartest move she ever made, and hadn't it been a nice summer? Seemed a shame it ever had to end. 13. 3 o'clock p.m. Bonnie Sawyer was lying on the big double bed in her house on the deep-cut road. It was a regular house, no shanty trailer, and it had a foundation and a cellar. Her husband, Reg, made good money as a car mechanic at Jim Smith's Pontiac in Buxton. She was naked except for a pair of filmy blue panties, and she looked impatiently over at the clock on the nightstand. 3:02. Where was he? Almost as if the thought had summoned him, the bedroom door opened the tiniest bit, and Corey Bryant peered through. "Is it okay?" he whispered. Corey was only 22, had been working for the phone company 2 years, and this affair with a married woman, especially a knockout like Bonnie Sawyer, who had been Miss Cumberland County of 1973, left him feeling weak and nervous and horny. Bonnie smiled at him with her lovely cap teeth. "If it wasn't, honey," she said, "you'd have a hole in you big enough to watch TV through." He came tiptoeing in, his utility lineman's belt jingling ridiculously around his waist. Bonnie giggled and opened her arms. "I really like you, Corey. You're cute." Corey's eyes happened on the dark shadow beneath the top blue nylon, and began to feel more horny than nervous. He forgot about tiptoeing and came to her, and as they joined, a cicada began to buzz somewhere in the woods. 14. 4 o'clock p.m. Ben Mears pushed away from his desk, the afternoon's writing done. He had foregone his walk in the park so he could go to dinner at the Nortons that night with a clear conscience, and had written for most of the day without a break. He stood up and stretched, listening to the bones in his spine crackle. His torso was wet with sweat. He went to the cupboard at the head of the bed, pulled out a fresh towel, and went down to the bathroom to shower before everyone else got home from work and clogged the place. He hung the towel over his shoulder, turned back to the door, and then went to the window where something had caught his eye. Nothing in town. It was drowsing away the late afternoon under a sky that peculiar shade of deep blue that graces New England on fine late summer days. He could look across the 2-story buildings on Jointner Avenue, could see their flat asphalted roofs, and across the park where the children now home from school, lazed or biked or squabbled, and out to the northwest section of town, where Brock Street disappeared behind the shoulder of that first wooded hill. His eyes traveled naturally up to the break in the woods where the Burns Road and the Brooks Road intersected in a T, and on up to where the Marston house sat overlooking the town. From here, it was a perfect miniature, diminished to the size of a child's dollhouse, and he liked it that way. From here, the Marston house was a size that could be coped with. You could hold up your hand and blot it out with your palm. There was a car in the driveway. He stood with the towel over his shoulder, looking out at it, not moving, feeling a crawl of terror in his belly that he did not try to analyze. 2 of the fallen shutters had been replaced too, giving the house a secretive blind look that it had not possessed before. His lips moved silently, as if forming words no one, even himself, could understand.